These are the 3 most common mistakes that are literally costing you clients right now. And I'm going to share with you exactly how you can fix them right away so that you do start attracting more clients into your online business. So here's the thing. If you've been doing or using different strategies to be able to consistently generate leads, whether we're talking about a webinar, a video sales letter, a video series, a boot camp, a online challenge, any of these things, and you have been experiencing a plateau in your business in the last 6 months, this video is going to be really helpful because it's going to give you clarity on what you need to change, what you need to shift, and what are some of those mistakes that are costing you a lot. I tell you right now, I have probably done almost every single marketing strategy to generate leads and make sales consistently in my business under the sun, right? From webinars to video sales letters to PDFs to quizzes to boot camps to challenges to videos, like literally all of them. And I've been able to learn over time exactly what needs to change and what needs to be done in a way that actually gets you results, in a way that's much more effective. To give you some perspective, we went from generating around $25,000 to $30,000 per month consistently in our business to now generating $60,000 and even $100,000 per month without really changing the strategy, but really actually looking at the messaging and the things that we were doing and fixing the mistakes that I'm going to tell you about right now. So what I see happening right now in the market is a lot of people experiencing some of the same things. So if you're doing your marketing strategy to generate sales calls, strategy sessions, whatever you call them, and it's not really working the way that it used to, these are kind of some of the things that I'm seeing, right? Calls getting a lot, very expensive if you're running ads, right? Unstable ads, for sure. A lot of no-shows on those sales calls. So if you do get people booking calls with you, a lot of people are not showing up for the calls, they're ghosting you. And then the conversion rates from those calls are lower and lower and lower. So what happens is that your funnel, which maybe you've been using or building for a while, has suddenly started becoming more and more unreliable. And that wasn't the point. You wanted to build a funnel. You wanted to build a strategy to be able to generate sales consistently and to have consistency and predictability in your business, right? And the thing is that instead of fixing the real problem and fixing those really common mistakes, people are focusing on doing things that are only perpetuating the problem, like literally making them worse, right? Like you're spending more money on ads because you're like, oh, okay, well then that's it. Or, looking at the tech and saying, well, maybe I need to buy some new expensive software, or I need to upgrade this funnel by doing this little trick, or let me invest into this, or let me spend my energy on how to improve sales and all of these different things. And what happens is that you're implementing all of these additional strategies, and they're leading you to more burnout and frustration because why isn't this converting how it should be, right? So what I've learned is that there's actually a few common mistakes that the majority of people are making that are actually causing those conversions to be low. And, obviously I'm talking about a funnel, but this is true whether you're doing a funnel or whether you're creating content and posting on social media, and that is your strategy to generate sales, right? So let's cover some of the mistakes that I see are the most common ones and the ones that you want to focus on and fix as soon as you possibly can so that you can start bringing those conversions right up. So the first one is people tend to dive too much into the pain or the problem that their audience has. I feel like the marketing industry has really done us a disservice because for a very long time, they taught us that that's what worked, right? Like you have to go, like people don't buy, to get to get something. They buy to get away from something, right? So it's like, let's focus on the problem. Let's focus on the pain because that's the only way that people buy. They buy based on their problems, not based on their desires. And I find that that is true, but it really depends on how you phrase the problem. That is really the core of everything, right? Because if you focus too much on really communicating on the pain and the problem and have all of your marketing strategy, all of your content be about agitating that pain and really making people like realize how horrible their situation is and how much they need you because otherwise their life is going to fall apart and all of these things, it really is going to make things a lot worse for you. And that's really not what we want. That's not what we want at all, right? What we want instead is really for us to be able to communicate to people's desires. Now, does that mean that we don't ever communicate to the problems? Of course not. We do have to speak to problems, but instead of going on and on about how horrible their life is, we really focus a lot of the communication on desires. So, it really is about lifting your audience up. I usually tell people, stop looking at your audience as like some idiot that can't do anything and can't figure anything out on their own. And what I see happening very often is people becoming what I call the Ursula, where they're speaking to the poor, unfortunate soul. Like your whole content, everything that you're doing is going so deep into the pain and the problem that your audience is experiencing that you just bring in people that are in victim mentality, that are focused on the problem only and not on the solution. So the first mistake is you're diving too deep into the pain and not enough on what the cause of the problem is, right? So we want to speak to desires a little bit more, but also you want to focus a lot of your content on what the cause of the problem is. Why are they experiencing this problem? That really needs to be front and center behind everything that you do, right? So that is honestly the first and most common mistake, is literally that. The second mistake is actually a simple one, but I think that it takes a lot of courage to admit sometimes, and it's creating content that sounds like everybody else. Listen, my friend, I 100% was this. I will 100% admit it. If you were to look at my webinars or my videos from 2016 when I launched my business online, you will see that the videos that I created were not different at all than anybody else's videos. My content was basically the same. My webinar was basically the same webinar as my coach's webinar. I just tweaked a little bit of things here and there, right? It wasn't the script, obviously, never copying the script, but it was like my interpretation, but it was basically saying the same thing. And obviously I can see that now looking back. At the time, I thought it was very original and different. But honestly, if your content sounds like everybody else's, if you're not really bringing your personality into it, if you're not bringing your unique brand into what you do, your unique perspective, your point of view, your own analogies, your stories, your anecdotes, your way of looking at things, it really is going to make you sound like everybody else. And now you become a commodity. It's like, well, why do I hire you? Why don't I just hire somebody else? You're going to do the same thing that everybody else is saying, and everything that you're creating is like everybody else's. So I know you're going to invite me on the call. I know this is going to be a sales call. I know you're going to sell this, and you're doing everything so cookie cutter and following the system and following the process that people basically are like, nope, right? Give me a yes in the comments if you're like, yeah, that I get that, right? I mean, I know for sure that if I am consuming somebody's content and I see the same systems and the same processes and the same things, like it's said almost the same way, it doesn't give me any desire to say, let me book a call with that person and see what they're doing. Because I already know, like I've already seen it. The thing is, your audience is more and more, not your audience, every audience, mind you, is more and more sophisticated every single day. And the reason for this is that the market has evolved. This isn't 2016 where there were barely any webinars out in the market. Everybody's doing them. Everybody has created this type of content. Your audience gets how this works, my friend. They're not dumb. They're pretty smart by now. They understand how this works. So if you're creating the same thing that everybody else is creating and everything looks the same and sounds the same, it's very difficult for you to be able to generate more sales. And that is literally costing you more clients because you sound like everybody else. So the third mistake, and we'll talk about fixing these things in just a second, is kind of tied to that, is not going deeper within your content, right? So not only are you creating content and a process that looks like everybody else's, but then when you look at your content, it tends to be too surface level, too simple, and not deep enough that it really goes in to speak to your ideal audience's problems and desires and their situation and their symptoms and all these things, right? You have to go deeper to really make it clear to them that you understand them and that what you do is different and what you do is unique. So it's really about going deeper in your content creation, right? So when we look at these three things, right, you're going too much into the pain, you're creating content that sounds like everybody else's, and then you're not really going as deep as you can with that content because it's still too surface level. Well, what that does is that it ends up repelling people that are premium, that are the ready to invest people, because the ready to invest people are looking for something different. They're looking for something deeper. So the way that you fix it is, number one, you start focusing more on desires. What does your audience want? How does the ready to invest version of your audience look at the situation? So we're not talking about the person that you have to go tell them why investing is good. This is why you should invest, and like, let's help you change your mindset. That your ideal ready to buy person understands why investing is important. They have the mindset already, yet they might be struggling with some of the mindset stuff. But if you have to convince them that, oh, it's a mindset thing, this is too basic. That is not what the ready to invest version of your audience is looking for. They're looking for depth, right? So what we want to do is make sure that we're focusing more on desire. This is what's going on, in a more like less like you're suffering at night and you can't sleep, and more into, let's talk about facts. This, and this is happening. This is the reason why. So going more into the cause. What is the cause? What is causing their problem? How can they shift that? How can they fix that? And really focusing on that. And the other part of this is looking at the process. I'm all for systems. I'm all for, like, let's go, let's build a funnel, whether it's a webinar or whatever it is that you're doing. Great, do your thing. It's amazing. It works. But also, how can you make it more your own? How can you make the whole system and process more of your own? So to give you an example, for us, instead of doing a traditional strategy session, aka a sales call, we do these 15-minute brand message assessments, right? And what we do on these calls is we evaluate people's brand message, and we give them immediate and direct feedback on what they can do right now to generate more conversions through their content, through their marketing, right? It is not a sales call, mind you. It isn't. It's a call where we deliver upfront value. That's what happens on the call. At the end of the call, if the person's like, okay, I'm interested in how you can help me implement, then we book a separate call for that. So we're changing the way in which the funnel or the process works, and we made it our own, right? So you want to look at the system, whatever system you learn, and think about, okay, how can I make this my own? How can I make it something that feels different to my audience, where they're getting value in a different way? And then the third thing, which I talked about, not doing surface level content, you really want to go deep into, like I mentioned before, the cause of the problem. And how can I bring in more anecdotes, more analogies to explain what's causing those problems? Go deeper. Think about the person that's more advanced within your audience. Even if your audience is a beginner, there's different levels of beginners. So there's the beginner that has no clue what they want. That's not the person that you want. I mean, maybe it depends on what you're doing. But again, like, there's the beginning that's like, I have no clue what I want ever. And then there's the beginning who's like, well, I don't know what I want, but I know that I want something. And then there's a beginner that's like, okay, I have an idea, and I know that I need support to figure out what I want, right? Like, and these can all be people who are beginners, but there's different levels within that. So we want to talk about, or talk to the person that's a little bit more advanced within that group, right? Especially if your goal is to attract those ready to invest clients. If you're trying to attract people who are premium, who are going to spend money on solving the problem, who are going to spend money on getting to the thing that they want. So hopefully that makes sense. I do have a training at readytoinvestclients.com where I go really deep into explaining how all of these things work, how to really attract and speak to the ready to invest clients, and some of those clues that allow you to really fix those issues. I go very specific, so go to readytoinvestclients.com to find that. Hopefully this is helpful. Go and follow me at Fabi Paolini everywhere: TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Pinterest. Like, literally you can find me everywhere as Fabi Paolini. And let me know in the comments if you were making any of these mistakes before, or you're currently making them, and what you're doing to fix them right now. I hope that this is helpful, and I will see you next time.